All right, we're gonna get set up here, so just give me just a second. All right. Hmm. Okay, so that fits a little bit better. Okay, cool. Sorry, this is my first live, so thank you for bearing with me. It took a few minutes to get us up and rolling there. But so to get us started here, I wanted to go through and talk about a few ideas about creating meals that you can use based off your macros, based off of food groups. And this is all stemmed from a question that I got recently. Focus on that. I'm a registered dietitian. I own noahsnutrition.com, and I typically create content and help individuals with fat loss and building muscle tissue. And so, in that whole series of events, a common practice that I like to see people do when they are trying to change their body composition is to use some sort of tracking system. We call it self-monitoring, right? And your ability to be able to log your food, log your weights, log your workouts, be able to reflect back on those logs and be able to make adjustments and move forward. So with that being said, a focus that we'll have here today is going to be kind of that idea of tracking macros and tracking your proteins, your carbs, and your fats, and what that looks like. So, right, if you might have a daily total of a lot of calories and a lot of macros to eat, and so how do you divide that up into several days? So let's go ahead and jump into this question. For our little hybrid window, I'm tinkering with this OBS system. It's kind of cool, but nonetheless, I've not figured it out clearly. So maybe the next one will be a little bit better. So definitely stay tuned. So we've got I created Google Docs here so I could kind of keep it organized and so you guys can follow along pretty easily. Maybe I'll link to this in the notes or something. I'll send it out in the email for this week. So if you're not subscribed to my email list, I'll put that link down at the bottom as well. So let's start running through this. I went ahead and put the question here that I got via text message about specifically, let me go ahead and read this to you. But how do I explain to you, I already know my macros, 1,800 calories, about 200 grams of carbohydrate, and 130 grams of protein, that to reach that. But it's been very difficult and stressful for me, which it shouldn't be, which reduces my motivation and stress, motivation to work out. I currently am using MyFitnessPal, but I would like to have meals set, then input them, and it confuses me when it changes up calories as well. Okay, so there's a few questions in here that we could pull out. This person knows that they have 1,800 calories. They know that they need eating about 210 grams of carbs. They would like to be able to make different meals out of this and be able to construct different meals. So that's the focus that we're going to that it's right here. And it confuses me when it comes to certain brands because that changes up the calories as well. So we're going to address that at the end as well. We're going to try and do both of these here. So first and foremost, we can maybe zoom into this so y'all can read it a little bit better. I wonder if that'll fit the screen. We'll find out. So to explain this, I created a kind of 5-step framework or 5-step process, right? And they break down like this. Step 1, identify your daily targets, right? So that was already done here. We have 1,800 calories, 200 grams, 210 grams of carbs, and 130 grams of protein. The next one would be distribution. So distributing these throughout the day. So this might look like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This might be, not that it has to be that way, but it might be that way. It might be 4 meals a day where you're breaking that up into 4 separate meals where you have like a breakfast, a second breakfast, kind of a late lunch, and then a dinner. It could be 3 meals and a snack. Like there's so many different ways we can distribute it. We'll talk about it. The next step in our 5-step framework is going to be building meals that hit those targets. So being able to identify, here's a good source of protein. Here's a source of protein I can add to this meal. Okay, does this protein contain any fat? Does this protein contain anything else? Who knows, right? And so that's where we'll come into building these meals. We're also going to hit on the food groups, which is not part of this question, but I think it'll be useful for you guys in that, right? You could fulfill all those grams of carbohydrate with Sour Patch Kids, right? I mean, 210 grams of carbohydrate with Sour Patch Kids versus having 210 grams of carbohydrate that's coming from like sweet potato or quinoa or beans or whatever you find food groups and making sure that you have those in there. So We hit targets, food groups, and then we're going to talk about kind of some preparation and planning. That is a very important aspect here. And so the 5-step framework, we're going to start with daily calories or your daily energy is essentially used to sleep, to run your brain, to run your nervous system, to work out, to think, to do everything, right? And this is even like, here's my analogy is, right? Sleeping Beauty, right? Sleeping Beauty lays there for, I don't know how long, but a long time, I'm assuming. And she is not moving, not sneezing, not cooking, not walking, not anything. She is still just keep everything running. So regardless, right, you have these processes that continue to roll and they continue to use energy. Your heart is still beating, you're still breathing. All of those pieces require energy. And that energy then it can increase. Right? It can increase if you increase your physical activity. So let's say you're not Sleeping Beauty anymore. She woke up, she was kissed, and then, she had her first day out and about. She's going to burn more energy probably that first day out and about than I kind of threw myself off with kissing and then waking up and doing that. But nonetheless, she is going to burn more calories than when she was laying down. So there is some variability, but for the most part, a vast majority of your calories are just going to be used to keep you alive. So, right, we have a calorie output, right? We have calories that are going out, and this is really what that identifying that target is. We also have calories that come in. We have calories that are coming in the form of food, right? So we can have a sandwich, we can have a burrito, we can have all those, we can have an apple, whatever it might be. That's going to provide us with energy. And so this idea of calories going out, right, to support even Sleeping Beauty, but also Sleeping Beauty running a marathon, right? We have calories out and then we have calories in. And this is kind of referred to as energy balance or calories in, calories out theory or idea. So when we have this calories in, calories out idea, right, we can see that balance, right? If we are consuming the same amount of calories that we are using, then guess what? We're going to maintain our weight. There's not going to be any fluctuation there. But however, right, let's say we don't have as many calories coming in as we do burning. So like, think about this, like Sleeping Beauty, she's not sleeping all day, not connected to a tube feed or anything. She's going to be probably losing weight pretty quickly. She's going to be using a ton of energy. She's going to connect with energy balance there. So with that being said here, right, let's say your goal is to lose weight. You consume less energy than you expend throughout the day. And so now you have a kind of a target or an idea of what you're going to be consuming as far as energy is concerned. Now we can talk about weight gain and that way as well. So, right, if we are physically active, we're, alive, moving around, we're burning those, that amount of calories, and we consume more than what we used in a day, and we do that consistently day over day, you're probably going to gain weight. You are going to gain weight eventually. And so I think that you can kind of look at this as kind of three components, whether it's, you're at energy balance where there is no, you're not eating over the amount of calories you need to maintain your weight, or you're not eating under the calories that you need to maintain your weight. That's going to be at maintenance. Then the other two steps are going to be above calorie maintenance, so eating more than, and that's going to cause weight gain. And then we're going to do eating less than your calorie maintenance, and that's going to cause weight loss. So, I'm sure that a lot of you guys already are familiar with this kind of concept. It's pretty well known at this point. So with that being said, this individual already had their calories already mapped out. They had an idea of their macros. So they're identifying their daily targets was already there. So with that being said, the daily targets for this specific example are going to be 1,800 calories, 210 grams of carbohydrate, and then 130 grams of protein. There are 4 calories per gram of carb. There are 4 calories per gram of protein. And then, so right, when we look at this, these macronutrients are going to be what make up this 1,800 calories. I'll explain that here in a minute. So fats actually weren't provided or weren't specified in the description above here. So I just did some math real quick. You can take your protein and your carbohydrates, and you can multiply that 114 or 210, excuse me, and then 130 times 4. That's going to give you the calories that are coming from both protein and from carbohydrate, which off the top of my head. So 4 times 130 equals 520 calories. And then we have carbs, which are 4 times 210 calories. We're going to have 840 calories. So then we can add those two numbers together and then kind of use that to justify this 49 grams of fat, which I'll explain to you here in just a minute. So we can do 840 plus 520 equals 1360 is what these two equal to. And then we will see what the rest is here. Oops. Sorry, I messed up the little calculator thing, and now we have to go back to square one. 840, 1360, we'll say minus 1800. So about 440 calories are going to be coming from fat. Now, fat, unlike carbohydrates and protein, have about 9 calories per gram. So we can take that 440 calories, right? And then we can divide it by 9 to give us the number of grams that we are going to have for our grams of fat. So we have about 48.8888 grams of fat. So I just rounded that up and put that at 49 grams of fat. So now we have our targets, right? We have 1,800 calories, 210 grams of carbohydrate, 130 grams of protein, and then about and macronutrients, because this is going to be the driving factor in your weight management and overall body composition. So what I mean by that is, right, I mean, if you don't abide by the idea of the calories in or calories out idea, right, and you have a goal of losing weight, and you're tracking your macros, like you're missing the foundational component that's really going to drive that forward. So you definitely want to find where your daily targets are at, what your goals are, and really shape it around that. Of course, calories and macronutrients are typically very individualized. Like they are based on height, sex, weight, age. So there's a lot of variables that are, in general, what those might be for somebody. But with that being said, finding your calories and then finding your total carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, that's going to be a huge driving force. I mean, your foundational pillars to your weight management, whatever you're trying to do. So with that being said, I mean, we've identified our targets here, so we know what we're shooting for. So we can kind of move on to step 2, which step 2 was distribution. To make it easier to hit your daily targets, you can then distribute your macros across different meals and snacks. Here's a simple idea, a simple example of how I would probably distribute macros and calories. You could also, like I said, you could do a different setup if you wanted to. This is just one example. And in this example, we've got breakfast, we've got lunch, we've got dinner, we've got snacks, and we've got snacks. Snacks. We love snacks. So with that being said here, we've got each of these, we can actually probably divide these two here. I just want to keep a separate thing here so you can kind of see the difference here. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they're going to be pretty similar. It's an opportunity. I feel like breakfast, lunch, and dinner are an opportunity for you to try and fulfill all the nutrient needs of protein, fats, and carbs specifically. Typically a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, somewhere around 400 to 500 calories, give or take. Now remember, we've got a pretty significant amount of carbohydrates to eat here. We got about 210 grams. So we're going to distribute those pretty heavy, 40 to 50 grams. And then for proteins, we're going to shoot for about 25 to 35 grams. And then we're going to do fats at about 12 to 15 grams. And we're going to do that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, averaging out about 400 to about 500 calories. Now for our snacks, they're going to be a little bit smaller. They maybe don't need as much fat, or they maybe don't need as much carbohydrate, depending on what you need. But anywhere between the range of 200 to 300 calories for your snacks. And the idea being here with a goal to fulfill some of your protein needs and then also your carb needs and your protein needs. The carb ones are bigger here, I think, because we have a decently high, not decently high, it's not that high at all, but we have a pretty moderate intake of carbohydrates. So we do want to be able to spread that out a little bit, is kind of my thought. Again, you can do this 1,000 different ways, but this is how I would think about it. Then we have, protein. We caught a lot of it done. When we think about it, we need 130 grams, 35 times 3, right? I mean, we're already above 100 grams there. And then 4 to 5 grams of fat. So pretty limited on the fats. So you're going to have 2 snacks throughout the day. So it might be like breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, and then dinner. So eating 1,800 calories in 1 or 2 meals would be challenging. By spreading your calories and macros across throughout the day, you're allowing your body to digest and absorb these nutrients efficiently. You're essentially giving let's think about it, a breakfast sandwich, right? So it had eggs, it had maybe you did an English muffin, and you had some turkey bacon and cheese on there, right? And so you have some protein in there, you have some fats in there, and you have some carbs in there. Each of those are going to take a certain amount of time for you to be able to digest, absorb, send through your circulation. So you got to think about it. You have to chew it. It has to go from your mouth all the way to your stomach. Then when it gets to your stomach, that stomach acid is going to start ripping apart some of those proteins and those amino acids. Then those are going to go to those carbohydrates from the English muffin, the protein from the turkey bacon, the fats from the cheese are all going to be broken to fats for lymphatic system typically, and then we're going to have blood sugar is going to increase because of the English muffin. Our amino acid pools are going to increase because of the protein that we ate from the egg and the turkey bacon. So right, that all those processes take time, and so right, we got to give our body enough time to digest and absorb those meals, and then we can, from there, get ready for our next meal. So, I think a good window to think in these terms, I want to give us a good range. Ideally, I think 2 to 4 hours would be a decent range for, maybe having a meal, and then 2 to 4 hours later having a snack, and then 2 to 4 hours later having another meal, and then 2 to 4 hours later having another snack. That's going to give you a decent amount of time to digest and absorb those nutrients that you are taking in at each of those meals. So versus, right, like you're going to digest or absorb it all, I'd be interested to see. I think that we can move on from here because, right, we've distributed them out. We've got some even numbers that we can kind of work with. And I'll say that these numbers seem a little bit more manageable. Okay, we have 40 to 50 grams of carbs versus up here we had about 210 grams of carbs. So, right, I mean, 210 is a huge number. We don't know, what do we fill with that? How do we do it? Timing on those? Well, man, this gives us a much better breakdown of this in that you can actually be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. I know that an apple has 25 grams of carbohydrate. So I need an apple, and I need to have another source of carbohydrate to fulfill those carbs for breakfast, right? And then same thing with protein, right? The average serving size of protein for an animal-based protein being like 3 ounces or so, right? So we have a 3-ounce piece of chicken that's cooked. That's going to provide us with roughly 24 grams of protein, 24 to 26 grams of protein. And you can go down the list, right? You can do tilapia, you can do shrimp, you can do lean cuts of pork, lean ground beef, lean ground turkey, and that's going to be pretty similar, about that 3 ounces cooked, roughly around that 20 to 30 grams of protein. So great. Okay, I'm going to need probably 1 to 2 carb sources for breakfast. I'm going to need probably 1, maybe 1.5 servings of protein based on what we just talked about. And then, of course, fats, right? Fat is, let's take olive oil, for example. A tablespoon of olive oil would be about 14 grams of fat. I think, 14 grams of fat. Being able to kind of break these down and see these numbers in more manageable chunks, I think it gives you a little bit easier of a target to follow as far as your nutrients are concerned, right? So you can think about in terms of, serving sizes of different foods that you can then fulfill these targets with, and it just makes it a lot easier to break down. So we've identified daily calorie totals, daily macro totals, which will be really the driving force behind fat loss or muscle building goals.
we've broken that down further from into like a mealtime goal. Now let's build some meals that fulfill those needs. So when we think about this, right, breakfast, this is how I tried to break it down for you. About 1 to 2 servings of protein could be anywhere between 15 and 30 grams per serving. So right, if we did Greek yogurt, like a Dannon 000 Greek yogurt, I think has like 15 or 17 grams of protein in there. So right, we could do some Greek yogurt with we could do it with some eggs, right? But eggs are their own dilemma in that, right? One serving, what's a serving of eggs, right? So thinking about that, okay, if I'm going to have 1 egg, I get 6 grams of protein. Well, then if I get 2 eggs, I get 12 grams of protein. So you can start to think, okay, now I can build out, how am I going to hit 25 to 35 grams of protein. So in order to hit that, I probably would need to have a Greek yogurt and 2 hard-boiled eggs in order to hit that protein goal. So that's why I put 1 to 2 servings for protein, because sometimes some of those protein sources might not have all the way up to 25 grams. Now, if you do like those, super easy macro meals where it's like the chicken, rice, and broccoli is always what comes to mind for this one. But you can think about, okay, I need those 4 ounces or 3 ounces of chicken breast. Excuse me. Or I need my 3 to 4 ounce patty of lean ground beef, or something along, which fits a little bit easier because it is that 25 to 35 grams already just in that 1 serving. So I can see where some of that confusion might come from. So with that being said, we have fats. Remember, our target here is 12 to 15 grams. So we're going to say 1 serving of fats, right? What we mentioned earlier, which was about I'm already at dinner. Was about 14 grams per serving. So right, if you cooked your eggs in olive oil, or put some avocado on your toast, or put some butter on something as well. So right, you can add your fats. I'll give you a really easy tactic here at the end of step 3. So definitely stick around here. So the tactic here would be now we'll move on to carbohydrate, because I don't want to go too far ahead of myself. But so for carbohydrate, I'd have to say, right, we have a target here of about 40 to 50 grams. So we might need upwards of 2 to even 3 servings of carbohydrate. Carbohydrate serving ranging from anywhere between 15 to 30 grams per serving. So this could be like breakfast, right? Oats, cereal, whole grain toast, right? So you can start to look at the back of your nutrition facts label on a loaf of bread, or you could look at oatmeal. We'll use that as an example here in the future, but you can start to shape out, okay, my breakfast, I'm going to do 2 hard-boiled eggs with some Greek yogurt. I'm going to skip the fat because I'm getting some fat in my eggs, and I want to put a little bit of butter on my toast. So that will be my meal there, right? So you can see, like, that would be a pretty easy way to do this. I could do this via tracking too. If you watch this, even if you watch the replay on this one, let me know if you'd like to watch me go through tracking this in a food tracking app, so you can get a little bit better of an understanding. Next, we have, lunch. I think this is pretty similar, might be a little bit different. So, like I mentioned earlier, with our protein sources, anywhere between 1 and 1.5 servings of protein is going to give you that, roughly 30. The 1.5 servings of like a chicken breast is definitely going to give you that of chicken breast. Might only give you that 24 grams. So you're actually a little bit under your target there, and it might kind of lead you to, if you do that, like if you have the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I mean, you'd probably be pretty short on protein for that day. So with that being said, so having 1 to 1.5 servings of protein, 15 to 30 grams of protein, in those, each again, ground turkey, tilapia, shrimp, there's a lot. We can go through a lot of them here. Fats, again, 1 serving, 14 grams of fat per serving. We could do like a salad dressing with this. I'm thinking like maybe even like a chicken salad or something along those lines. So then we move on to carbohydrates. We're going to do 1 serving. I'd actually say we're going to bump this up to this here, this 1 to 3 servings of carbohydrate. Again, average serving about 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate per serving. We can do rice, whole grain bread, some tortilla. So like you could do a turkey sandwich for lunch, for example, right? And you could do your protein as the sliced deli turkey. You could do your fats as maybe some avocado on there. Maybe do it like an avocado bacon turkey bacon sandwich. And then, right, of course, your carbohydrate in that case would be your whole grain bread. So give you a little bit of context there. And then, of course, let's move on to dinner. Dinner and lunch are going to be pretty similar. I try to give us a few different protein options here. So we do 1 to 1.5 servings of salmon, pork, chops, lean beef, 15 grams of protein. I know that I gave it this range. I just wanted to give it some flexibility. So, right, when you think about it, the Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is going to be like 17 grams of protein. That's where that 15 is coming from. As far as 15 in these other terms, right? A serving of pork chops is going to have more than 15 grams of protein. A serving of lean beef is going to have more than 15 grams of protein. Salmon, on the other hand, salmon is probably going to have close to 18 to 19 grams of protein per serving. So right, it might be a little bit more in line with this, which might cue you to have 1.5 servings if that would be the case, if that's what you wanted to do. Again, we've got 1 serving of fats. So you'll notice here I put salmon, and I want you to keep this in mind here. But I put salmon because some of our sources of protein are going to have maybe some residual fats in there. I guess we could call them residual fats. And so it's important to take that into consideration. So 1 serving again of carbohydrate. We just have that rinse and repeat there. And then, of course, we get to our snacks, right? So we want to have about 15 grams per serving. Greek yogurt would fill that perfectly. Less than 5 grams of fat. If we needed some extra fat, we could do some nuts. And then, of course, a serving of carbohydrate would be about that 30 grams. And we could do some fruit there. Rinse and repeat gave us a few different options here. So this is what I wanted to get to for you guys. An easy way to think about creating your meals that fit your macro needs. I like to use this. Pick your protein, choose your carbs, find your fats, right? So choose 1 to 2 servings of lean protein for each meal. Track it. Choose your carb, right? So pick a carb that's going to pair well with your protein source. Had Greek yogurt. Chances are you're probably not going to want to have rice with your Greek yogurt as your carb source. So pick your carb source that pairs well with your protein. So that's where choose your carb comes into play. And then finally, we have find your fat. So dressing or baked in with our carbohydrate source. So identify if your meal already has fat, and if it doesn't, then add it, right? Fat's very flavorful, but it can be added in, and it can be part of other pieces of your meal as well. So just take that into account when you are building out these kind of macro-friendly meals. That's kind of my phrase that I like to use for simplifying this idea, right? So pick your protein, choose your carb, find your fat. Of course, I have some resources, macro food list, if you want to get a better idea there. So food groups. We're almost done. The second to last thing that I want to talk about for planning your meals is to make sure you're getting in the right amount of each of the 5 food groups. So the 5 food groups are lean proteins, low-fat dairy, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. You could trim these up, and you could say protein, dairy, grains, fruits, and vegetables. But I like to designate these as such because then it weeds out a few other pieces we'll talk about. So,
when you think about this, right? When you're thinking about adding in
lean proteins, low-fat dairies, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. Now, instead of just focusing on, we're going to take it back to our macros here. Instead of just focusing on, okay, if only we're going to fulfill these, we are going to work on making sure that, hey, each of my meals has a lean protein source, it has a low-fat dairy source, it has a whole grain, and it has a fruit or vegetable, right? I will say that I do like to try and stack my fruits up for my snacks. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. It's an easy trick to make sure that you're getting in your servings of fruit per day, and then I'll leave the vegetable component for my meal times. That's just something I like to do. Don't have to do it that way, but it makes it a little bit easier. The reason I wanted to come back up to distribution and talk about this is because, right, when we mentioned it at the very beginning of this was, you have, I think we mentioned it up here. If you have 210 grams of carbohydrate, theoretically, you could fulfill those with, Skittles and Sour Patch Kids and any other sort of candy or simply sugar essentially. So you can fill it with that. Same thing with protein though, right? I mean, theoretically we could have what would that be? If a protein shake has about 30 grams, we probably would need four or five protein shakes in order to hit this 130 grams. So, right, we could theoretically meet some of these macronutrients and then just eat butter for the remainder of our fats. So, theoretically, you could have Skittles and Sour Patch Kids to fulfill your carbs. Theoretically, you could have protein shakes to fulfill your protein, and then you could have butter to fulfill your fat. Now, this is why I bring up the 5 food groups, right? Is so that it pulls it away from this idea of just filling your macros for the sake of filling your macros to transitioning to, okay, I got my calories, I filled my macros, and then I also met all my 5 food groups, right? So now you've encompassed not only, right, calories and macros, which are going to be the hugest driving force behind, or the biggest driving force behind your, the biggest driving force behind your body composition, weight management strategy. You now have the 5 food groups giving you a foundation in other nutrients, right? A foundation in calcium coming from the dairy. In maybe we have so many nutrients that could be coming from fruits and vegetables. We might have some antioxidants coming from there. We might have some, we'll leave that there. We'll have some antioxidants from there. We chose a ton of different sources of lean protein, right? Which might have some of our B vitamins or some of our zinc or, some of those pieces as well. So right, being able to pick from this list that we have down here of our 5 food groups: lean proteins, low-fat dairies. We could go to grains, fruits and vegetables. So fulfilling your carb sources instead of with Sour Patch Kids and Skittles, we can do some whole grains. We could do some oats. We could do some whole grain bread. We could do a few of those different pieces there. We could also include a few different pieces of fruit. And so this is another guiding principle that you can use to, I don't know, put some blinders on to all the different options you have, maybe, in that close to 50 grams of carbohydrate. Did I get my, 3 servings of whole, three servings of whole grain? Okay, great. Each of those is going to be 20 grams. We're up to 80, we're up to 1 plus 50, let's say 130 for carbohydrate by just fulfilling these 2 requirements here, right? So when you take that into account, now you have a meal plan that fits your calories and your macronutrients. With the addition of eating a variety of different fruits from each group, you now have a meal plan that also provides all the macronutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants that you need. So, right, this is a real nice way to bring it all together. So, so we can move on here. Include your lean proteins, and we'll just do a recap, right? So we've identified our targets. We have distributed those to a more manageable breakfast, lunch, and dinner situation with 40 to 50 grams of carbs, with to 15 grams of fat. So, and then once we've decided that, we started to fulfill those macros with our chicken, our tilapia, salmon. I'm trying to think about the examples we used to fulfill our proteins. Then we have, our carbohydrates that we need to fulfill. We're going to do that again with our 5 food groups and looking at making sure we've got whole grains, making sure that we're meeting our fruit requirement per day. And then we've got, of course, then we move on to the 5 food groups, incorporating lean proteins, low-fat dairies, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. So now we're going to come to this idea of preparation. So, right, a diet that stays within your caloric budget, hits your protein, fats, and carbohydrate goals, and meets the recommended intake for lean proteins, whole grains, low-fat dairy, fruits, and vegetables. There's no lying here. You've got to invest some time and some effort in planning, grocery shopping, and meal prepping to achieve the diet listed above. Right, that is what but in doing so, right, you're checking all the boxes and resting assured that you are eating a healthy, balanced diet, right? This does the trick for you. This is what healthy eating would entail, as long as you are meeting these requirements, in addition to tracking your macros, staying within your calories. So it doesn't leave anything hanging, but I will say that it does. It takes some time to,
sit down on a Thursday, write out your meal plan, think about what you'll be doing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, think about your snacks, then consider, okay, does each of these meals have a source of protein, a lean dairy? But in doing so, right, you're going to be able to fulfill those calories, fulfill those macros, and also meet all of your micronutrient needs. So let's talk about really quickly. I wrote this here. I cannot think of a better return on investment. Living and thriving for longer. So addressing the different brands and the different calories. While yes, some similar products can indeed have different caloric and nutritional values, I find this especially true when looking at highly processed food and comparing that maybe to its normal food. And I don't mean to use like highly processed as a kind of a fire word or anything, or what do they call those words? I don't know what it is, but nonetheless. So I gave us an example here. So I pulled up two. We have Kroger maple brown sugar instant packet oatmeal versus Kroger old fashioned whole grain oats, right? So just plain old oats. Now, when we look at the servings, right, one serving is about 40 grams. The other serving is about 43 grams. So pretty similar as far as serving is concerned. Calories, 160, 150 for the just plain old oats. Protein's almost the same. Carbs makes sense. The brown sugar is probably giving it more carbohydrate. And then fats, we've got about 2 versus 2.5. So yeah, you would think that the old-fashioned whole grain oats. However, there are 14 grams of added sugar in the maple and brown sugar instant oatmeal packets. So it's much higher in added sugar. So here's my recommendation to and I think this making it happen. So making making it happen so that you are eating a healthy, well-balanced diet, and you are meeting the food groups. So each time, really the key is to always check the nutrition facts label. And if there's some keywords I bolded here, so opting for the products with less sodium, less saturated fats, less added sugar, and fewer calories. If you can manage to look for products that'll do that for you, you can rest assured that product that you're buying, confusing or not, right, is going to align with your health goals. So, right, you have two packages in your hands. You're looking at them. You're like, I don't know which one to choose. This one looks tastier, but this one has, whatever. Check. Does the product you have less sodium compared to the other? Does it have less saturated fat? Does it have less added sugar? And are the calories lower? And if your answer is yes, then that's probably a good product to go with. And if not, you probably still get it and make it fit your macros. You're fine, but nonetheless, you can also scan the food product. I like to use that chronometer to populate, the specific product's nutrition information. Makes it really easy, and sometimes they have more detailed information. Sometimes they don't, though, too. I'd love to hear about what your macro meals are, anything you've created at this point. This is not an email, but this was definitely going to be an email. But I figured y'all could benefit from it as well. So, to recap us here and to bring us back, we identified our daily targets. We went through a distribution. We built meals that hit these targets. We tried to incorporate some food groups in there as well, so that not only were we hitting our calorie and macronutrient targets, but we were also fulfilling our micronutrients. We also discussed that this is going to take some effort, right? You're going to have to sit on a plan. You can't fly by the seat of your pants on this one. You got to put in some work. You gotta invest the time to plan, prepare, and kind of be ready to take on the world. So, like I said, I'd love to hear your guys' input and see what you guys are doing as far as creating meals. We could use some new ideas always. So with that being said, this is my first live. Thanks for bearing with me. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon.